Hi everybody, my name is Dave Shell. I'm a wood turner in Mountjoy, Pennsylvania, which is in Lancaster County, which is south central Pennsylvania. Today I'm going to show you how to do something relatively quick and very fun to do because there are no rules on how you make one of these items, and everything you can make unique and different. I'm going to teach you how to make magic wands. These are always a really big hit for me at craft shows, or a big hit with little kids. All kids are reading like the magic books. I can't really say the name because of copyright infringement. But I'm going to teach you how to make these magic wands today. And the best thing about it is I'm going to show you how to do it with just two main tools. So we're going to use a modified bowl gouge. This is a gouge that I have ground specifically just to make magic wands. It has a little bit of a sharper gouge on it, sharper cut I should say, a little bit rounded of a front. And I use it almost exclusively just for magic wands. And then I also am going to use a skew, not in the traditional skew sense, because I'm not very good at it, but I'm going to show you how I use a skew. And then the only other tool I use is a parting tool, and that's just to get the piece off the lathe. So I'm not really going to count that one, that doesn't really matter. So let's go ahead and I'll show you how to make these magic wands. Start to finish takes 20 minutes or less. So they're very, very quick and easy and fun pieces to make. To get started, you need a good wand blank. My blanks I cut to about 14 inches long. I was told by someone in a metaphysical shop that the wand needs to be at least the length of your elbow, almost, let me see if I can get this on the screen, from your elbow almost to the middle of your hand. So for me, that's about 14 inches. And then it is 1.5 inches square this way and this way. That's the size I make my wands. You can make your wands any size you want. You can make them longer, you can make them shorter, you can make them thicker, thinner. Doesn't really matter. There's no rule for it. I like to use cherry wood a lot to make my wands, but I've made wands in 12 different species of wood. The only wood I really have a problem making wands in is flaming box elder. The wands look fantastic, but it's not a very strong wood, so sometimes it can't take the pressure of the shape of the wand, and I find that they break in half relatively easily. So I like using cherry. It's nice strong wood. I prefer to use straight grain wood if I can. I don't like to use a lot of curly wood, a lot of bird's eye maple or anything like that. Sometimes the grain structure just doesn't work. So let me show you how it looks on lathe. Oh, I also want to tell you that not everything is perfect. So at the end of this video, there's a couple bloopers where the wands that I was going to show you didn't quite work out. So I'll be able to show you what happens when wands break on a lathe and how easy they are to break. So in this video, I think I broke 4 wands before I made the final one. So stay tuned.
Some of you are probably asking why I'm not using a roughing gouge to round out the blanks. The modified bowl gouge that I'm using does the job of a roughing gouge. It doesn't make sense for me to pull out another tool when this tool I have already does that job. If you feel more comfortable using a roughing gouge to round out your blanks, by all means go ahead and do this. I did about 100 wands this year so far, so I feel pretty comfortable using the tool that I'm using to do most of the work. Once I have the blank rounded out, I start to figure out where I'm going to have the 3 parts of my wand. My wands are generally in 3 parts. I have a longer shaft, I have a middle piece which is more decorative, and then I have a handle that you would hold the wand with. Generally, when I make a wand, I have learned that when you decide where the shaft is going to end in your wand, I tend not to make the shaft right in the middle of the wand. There's too much centrifugal force in that middle section, and I find when I make my shafts end in the middle of the wand, they snap pretty easily. So what I will do is I will end the shaft a little past the middle of the wand, closer toward the handle end of the wand. And then that way the tension in the middle of the wand isn't there as heavy and the wand doesn't snap. So what I do is I just rough out where I'm going to start putting the middle piece. I rough out a little bit of the shaft and then I start working on the handles. I do this so the weight is evenly distributed among the wand. You don't have all the weight on the handle, you don't have all the weight in the middle, or you don't have all the weight on the shaft. Once I decided where I'm going to have the pieces, then I just start to do some rough design on the handle, on the middle part, and then on the shaft. And really there's no rhyme or reason on what I'm doing here. None of my wands look the same. Out of the 100 wands I did this year, I don't think any of them actually looked identical. There were some similarities in them, but none of them looked identical. I don't like making identical things, so that's a good thing. You'll start to see that I'm using my tool now more as a scraper. So the way I have this tool ground, there's a scraping side and then there's a cutting side. The front of it's more pointed to cut, and then the sides are designed to be more of a scraper. Here I found a dark piece in the wood. As I was spinning, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't a crack in the wood, because if that would have been a crack, I would have just stopped right there and started over. When I'm thinning out the shaft, I don't have any rules on how thick the shaft is. A lot of it depends on how strong I think the wood is. If it's a very straight wood and a very strong wood like cherry, I can make my shafts a little bit thinner. If it's a weaker wood, like an English walnut or maybe a box elder, then I'll tend to make the shafts a little bit thicker so they can withstand the torque of the tools on the spindle. Here I am making the design in the middle section of the wand. I try and keep my designs relatively simple. Every now and then, if I'm doing a wand for something special as a gift, or maybe someone ordered a special design, I'll go ahead and spend a little bit more time on the design. But I like to generally just do some simple designs, some coves, some cuts, something relatively nice that looks attractive. On the handles, really it's your feel on how you want the handle to go. I've made some thick handles, I made some thin handles, I made some honey dripper looking handles. It really depends on what you want. Now I'm going to go ahead and use my skew. This is not the traditional way of using the skew, but what I'm using the skew for is really just to make sure the shaft of the wand is nice and straight. I want to get all the bumps out of it. You know, I use it to taper the shaft, but mostly I use it to get rid of the bumps and to give it a nice smooth edge. I know this isn't the ideal way of using a skew, but it works for me and it works really well for the wands. What I like to do is at the very end before I'm ready to sand is just kind of grab the end of the wand and see if it has a good hand fit. If you're doing these for little children, then the handle doesn't need to be as big, but a lot of my wands also go to adults, so I want to make sure that the adults can grab onto the handle and feel like they have a firm grip on it. Then what I do is I sand with 2 grits. Most of the wands I just sand with 150 grit and then 220 grit. Instead of showing you the details, I'm just going to speed up the sanding here a little bit. This is another reason why you might not want to make your wands as intricate, because it takes a lot longer to sand if you have all the coves and things to go through. So I just felt that the handle needed something else. It was a little bit too plain for me. So I just kind of used a skew and just carved in some honey dripper lines. Give it a little bit more texture, give it a little bit better of a feel in the hand. I don't really measure them out, you just kind of eyeball it. I think if you find that you're making wands, your target audience is going to be small children who are reading those magical books that we can't say, and adults. There's a lot of adults that like to use wands, and I just made some wands for a New Year's Eve party. I made some wands for Halloween parties. I made some wands for a wedding. So there's a wide mix of what you can use wands for, and they're very easy to make. They're very fun to make, and you can make a lot of them in one day. Here I parted the end of the wand off a little bit too early. You kind of see it wiggling around there. And what I'm doing before I put the oil on is just almost parting the entire thing off, and then I'm just going to go ahead and put a little bit of oil on it. I like to use tung oil or teak oil. In this case, I'm using some teak oil that I had in the shop. Either one of those brings out the color of the cherry pretty well. I just use a paintbrush to put it on while it's spinning on the lathe. Seems to coat it very well, and then I just wipe off the excess at the end. And then when I'm done, I'm just going to go ahead and saw off a little bit, and then you will have a finished wand. It's really that easy. It's not that hard. They don't take that long. 20 minutes, you have a wand from start to finish. It's a great way of using up your scrap wood from bowl turning. It's a great way of using pieces of wood that have huge cracks in it, but you can still salvage a 14-inch long by 1.5 inch square piece of wood. Cherry's my favorite wood to use, but I've made wands out of a number of woods: sycamore, oak, black locust, honey locust, black walnut, English walnut, apple, mulberry. There's a whole list of woods I've made. Alright, there you go. That's the final wand right there. So not all wands are perfect. Here are two that I broke. Enjoy this. They can't all be wands, but thanks for watching.